it's like when you go to the gym, 1 month in, you don't see any difference, right? It's like, oh, I can't see the summit, it's cloudy, screw it, let me go down, right? But hang on, put in another 2 months, and somewhere you will start seeing that glimpse of where you want to reach, right? And once you see that, no, there is no stopping.
Hey Avneesh,
Hi.
welcome to What the Deuce.
Thank you.
I would call this season 1, but I would actually start calling it season 1.5 now. A little break in the middle did me well. So I'm glad to have you on as the first guest in 1.5. And before we get into the entire conversation, I'd love for you to kind of give a small introduction to who you are and what you've done, and then we'll take things forward.
Sure. Firstly, thank you for having me to the what the deuce. I'm going to ask you later what that means, but yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's actually a very special occasion for me to come and speak about what we are going to speak. But let me just give a little brief about what I do. So I currently I have a startup called Good Indian. I'm a co-founder. So Good Indian is into activewear. So I'm doing that part. I'm also an independent marketing consultant, consulting a lot of startups for experiential digital marketing. And I have been a sportsman for the better half of my life. I have played cricket at the national level. I was captain of Maharashtra, so on and so forth. And then for a good 13 years, I was working in an agency. I was doing experiential marketing. So I was living in Delhi. And yeah, that sums up whatever I'm doing in a very short way.
Awesome. And we'll get more into detail as we
Yes.
get into the depths of the conversation.
Yes.
Just before we start, you're wearing a cap. Is that a straight dig at me or?
No. That is a dig at all the other people who will be watching it. It reads, why don't you read it out?
So for everyone who can't read it, it says not everyone should have a podcast. And the moment I read that, I felt, gosh, shit, fuck off. But I know in a friendly way.
No, I mean, this is not about this, because I think your podcast says that shit no one talks about. Okay. And I hope we can keep that real and we can keep it authentic. And this, I hope it doesn't apply to you.
I hope so too.
Yes.
So yeah, so we've met a couple of times. We're fairly new friends, and we have a common link, right? And that common link is what actually got us thinking about doing this episode together. And that's where things kind of got interesting, right? Because we both are kind of coming off an injury. Mine probably a lot less rather serious. But yours is something that I really don't think many people know about. Like even I didn't know about it. I had never heard about it. When I heard the term, I thought it was something really creepy, really dangerous. And I'm like, dude, hella kaya. So I'd like for you to kind of talk about what happened, and then we'll get into like what happened after that. But
right.
for the viewers and listeners who are tuning in, what AVN is.
Right.
Now I won't get to the full form because I'd love for you to explain it. So what AVN is, and then we'll talk about that.
Right. So the condition which I have is called as avascular necrosis of the hip bone. So necrosis means the death of a bone. So essentially I'll just break it down into very simple, define it very simply. So the blood supply to the hip bone stops, right? And because of that, the hip bone collapses. It starts getting decayed because it doesn't have the nutrients and all that. And eventually it kind of collapses and you need to get your hips replaced, right? Usually it is on one hip. Mine is bilateral. So I got it on both the hips.
Wow.
And well, this happened a good 2.5 years back when I was living in Gurgaon, and I was detected stage 2. So there are a lot of technical jargons around AVN, but this is the most basic explanation.
So if you could you just explain the 4 stages that are prevalent in
Yes. So before we get into the stages, let me just explain what AVN means
absolutely.
with my. So basically you have the femur bone, right? So the femur bone is joined to the ball socket.
Yeah.
Correct. Now the femur bone is the biggest bone.
Yeah.
Right, and it is like a all the movements of your body are based on this. So once the blood supply stops, the topmost part of the bone starts decaying. So stage 1 is where there is almost nothing. You don't get it detected on the X-ray. Stage 2 is where you start seeing a little dip in that bone. So the decay happens. Stage 3, the bone is completely half. And stage 4 and 5, this starts becoming soft and it collapses. It's like a potato. When it is not boiled, it is hard, right? But when you boil it, becomes soft. So the same thing happens with the hip bone.
So it literally becomes mushy.
Yes, and eventually you have multiple fractures, and then you just can't walk, and you have to get it replaced.
I mean, that's a really scary situation to be in, and to be where you are today. I know you work out and you enjoy working out, and you go through that pain, and it's all there. But just being able to do that is really difficult. Nowadays, people through the social media life and all of this have very little patience for anything. So just having the patience to understanding your pain, understanding what has happened, and knowing that you want to get through it is really commendable. So how did that mindset even come?
Well, first, let me just talk to you about how this whole thing happened, and then how I reached a point where I had to decide what to do with my life, right? So this was in 2021. I was living in Gurgaon, second lockdown. I had already transformed, so to speak. Like, I had already done a good 8 months of weight training, understood nutrition, got into the whole spiritual, way of life. So I was in a very good space, and then I had come to Pune, second lockdown, and I used to play football every day, and life was really good. And I felt really powerful. Like, work's great, life is great, working out, best version of myself. So I started developing pain in my hip. Actually, I didn't know it was hip. It was somewhere in my back or my hip. I couldn't really find out. It was a very weird pain which was there, and like all of us, we thought that football I'm playing might be a muscle thing, might be overexertion, and sleep it off and all that. And I kept training, I kept playing, and I kept stretching it for a good 2-3 months, and then I had to go back to Gurgaon. Lockdown got over, and business as usual, right? Again, the pain used to come, but I kept ignoring it. I went to the physio once, and the physio also couldn't really diagnose it because he thought it was a muscle thing. So he kind of made it worse because it's not a muscle thing, it's a bone thing. And that's the first misconception. Like, we always think that some muscle issue or whatever. And then he made it worse because he kept stretching the muscles, and I was like, what's happening here? The pain was not going, and I was just popping pills and just being very nonchalant about it. One day I was on a flight from Mumbai to Delhi, and I think that's where shit hit the roof. I couldn't walk. The flight landed, and I tried to get out of my seat. I couldn't walk. And I'm like, okay, what's happening here? I couldn't take one step. I had to hold on to the seat, and it was damn scary. And I'm like, okay, I'm in trouble, because this is not something which I've ever experienced. And I had to be wheelchaired out. And while on the wheelchair, I was like, what's happened to me? Suddenly from being the best version of myself, I can't walk. So then, of course, I had to speak to my family and my cousin's doctor, and then they all recommended do a MRI. Okay. So I went, did the MRI, that's where it got detected. Stage 2, avascular necrosis. And I was staying alone in Gurgaon, right? I just went casually, and I'm looking at the report, and avascular necrosis, what the hell is that, right? I googled it. I'm like, what?
Imagine googling your own
because I never heard of this term. It sounds so horrific. It sounds like some crazy situation, which it is, but it's not life-threatening also, luckily. But I'm like, hey, so I have AVN. I put it on my WhatsApp group in my family, and then that started the whole panic situation everywhere. And from that MRI diagnosis, to the point that I had to shift cities, there was a lot of back and forth which happened. So AVN, how you approach AVN basically is that there is no fixed solution for it. It's one of those rare conditions where there is no reason why it happens. I mean, there are, of course, lifestyle, steroids. People who are having steroids are getting AVN. And especially now because of COVID, whoever's had steroids, it's one of the most popular conditions. Everyone is getting AVN today because whoever's had remdesivir is getting AVN, which is the long COVID. So you had black fungus and then now is AVN. So there is no such reason why people get it, and there is no such treatment. It's a crazy situation.
So like you live and die with this situation.
You live with it, and eventually you have to get your hips replaced.
Okay.
But I'll come to how AVN can get into the other parts of your body also. So here we were with this diagnosis, not knowing what to do, and there were like many opinions from everyone, right? So usually what happens is when you have stage 2, I was stage 2, by the way, stage 2, stage 3 bordering, and usually people get something which is called as a core decompression surgery. So it's a surgery where they drill in your bone, and they remove the dead part and they inject stem cells. So it's like, it's a temporary fix, but usually you don't have that much success.
Is this an experimental treatment or is it?
Well, if you Google it, you will see for yourself that the chances of core decompression are like about 55-60%.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of doctors have had also told me, that don't do decompression. But there's also another school of thought where do it right now, get it fixed, and later on we'll see how it goes, right? So that was one conversation which was happening. The other conversation was that, get your hips replaced right now. Just get it done with. It doesn't matter. You'll just lose maybe a year and life comes to normalcy, right? With hip replacement, you can do 95% of things. And in this, my parents were also worried. I was living alone. There was a lot of confusion, a lot of panic. It took some time for me to even accept that, okay, I have something which is not combi phlegm khake. It's not going to be okay. It's going to be something which you have to approach it a certain way, right? And so we consulted a lot of doctors, and and if you read up about AVN, you will not see anything concrete on the internet. And even doctors are experimenting because of a fairly new condition, right? So it's not like, okay, if you have diabetes, you know what to do.
Correct.
Right? If you have any other problem, you know what to do. When things are uncertain, that's the worst, because it all depends on a judgment call.
Absolutely.
And it can go anywhere, right? So between all of this, we found a doctor in Mumbai. He is the head of the department in Hinduja Hospital, Dr. Agarwala, Sanjay Agarwala. He has actually championed a treatment, so to speak, for stage 2 patients.
Okay.
And it started as an experiment, and he has seen results. He's seen like positive results on his patients. And he's written a paper. He's one of the only doctors who has pioneered this. Okay. And then everyone's followed after that. So we tried to get in touch with him. Getting an appointment with such a big doctor was a big thing. And we found that doctor. And before we actually, came to this doctor, I had to take a decision. What do I do? Should I do the surgery? Or should I not? And it was also very important for me to, I realized that I need my support system, and staying alone in Gurgaon wasn't going to cut it. I couldn't walk. I was on a walker, walking stick, wheelchair, and I was managing, but it was a problem. So then I decided that, okay, fine, I think I need to go back. And that's how I came back to Pune.
Okay.
Back to family. And then we went to the doctor, and then we discussed all of this. He said that, hey, listen, we can treat you. It's going to be a very long treatment, 3 years, 3.5 years, and it's going to be painful. But there is a chance. There's a 40-45% chance. But with a lot of restrictions.
Absolutely.
No walking, no weights. You have to completely change your life, so on and so forth. And I remember I had gone with my father, and on the way back on the expressway, I was talking to him, and I don't know what, I was like, I want to do this. I don't want to do the surgery. I want to see and test for myself how much I can fight. I've always been this way, and you know how it is, right? When someone tells you something, you want to fight it out. You want to see how how your body responds to it. And the thing actually was that I didn't have patience to wait for a year. Okay, to be very honest, like if I have to be very honest, I'm like, yeah, who is going to go through hip surgery? One hip. So you have to operate on one hip, wait for 3 months, operate on the other hip, and then build it again. I was like, I don't have the patience. And
so you have to wait even 6 months even before you start to rebuild.
Absolutely.
Huge wait.
So, and also hip replacement, the thing is that you have to get a revision apparently every 15-20 years, right? Because it's an artificial thing which is going in your body, right? So imagine if I do this now, then probably I'll have to have 2 or 3 revisions depending on how long I live. And I was like, I don't think it's going to cut it. Like, if I have this chance, 40-50% chance, no problem. It's the long journey. I'll see how it goes. And I was clear. And my father, my mother, all my family said, it is your choice. It is not our choice. There are 2 very strong opinions. You can do the surgery also, and you can not do the surgery also. So it was entirely my choice to take the medical route and the fight, the war in my head, and I'm so glad that since that day and what we are saying right now, it's been a beautiful journey. I can't even begin to tell you how. And that's why in the starting of the podcast, it's a very important day for me, because I have not come out with this on social media. Only my friends, some of my work colleagues know, my family knows, of course. But I have not put a post out on Instagram or because I was like, what? Okay, fine. Let me do that. All the narratives can happen later. First, you got to put in the work.
Absolutely.
And then once you become successful or whatever, you can just connect the dots and build your narrative, right?
Correct.
So
proof is in the pudding at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
You can't show the work that you've put in. There's no point in talking about it.
So that is how all of this happened. I had to change cities. I was working that time, and of course my agency that time supported me a lot because it was work from home any which ways. And for 14 years I was in Gurgaon, Delhi, Gurgaon, and I always thought that okay, this year I'll go, this year I'll go to Bombay or come back. And I think it had to be an injury to be able to uproot myself from this life I had created and come back to base. So this is, to answer your question, this is how it started. This is how I got diagnosed. And I think it was between October and Jan, all these decisions about how I want to approach this, surgery, no surgery, all that happened. And then I came back to Pune.
And this was when? What year was this?
This was 2021 moving into 2022. So I think I got diagnosed October 21. I was in Pune by Jan end. Shut shop, got everything packed, came back home, and I honestly at that time I didn't know what I was getting into, and I will give you the details about what happened once I decided, and once it was like day one. And from day one, how that journey went. So this is a background to how my journey started. This is what happened.
So I can completely relate with this because I have a condition myself. I have an annular tear in my disc, right? And I did the same thing as you. I ignored the pain. I'm a huge basketball fan, so I play basketball. I play badminton. I love playing cricket, and I just ignored all of the pain and just kept playing.
Right.
And even working out, I'm not really the best runner, or I don't really like running that much. But I used to go for my walks, and even the slightest walk, my back would start hurting. And especially when I lie down, that's when the pain starts. And in my head, I'm like, dude, like, what's going on?
Right.
Like, I know I'm not that old, like,
Right.
that my body should start hurting that much.
Right.
And then at the same time, my mom had an issue with her knee. So she had a meniscus tear in her knee. So I had taken her to the doctor, to the osteo. The ortho. And my mom's like, just show your thing as well. Like, you're here, just take an appointment with me and just do it. I'm like, you know what, fine, let's just do that. And of course, the doctor did a couple of tests and he's like, you know what, you have to get an MRI. So I got it, and then there's a clear tear in my disc. And I see it, right? Like, of course, I don't know how to read an MRI or imaging. But when the doctor pointed it out to me, I'm like, wow, that's actually in my disc. And I asked him, I'm like, you know, why does this happen? And he's like, it's only wear and tear from whatever you've done throughout your life.
Right.
And that's when I realized, like, how much we actually mess with our bodies, right? And it's not just the physical aspect where we mess with our bodies. We drink, we smoke, we party, we travel, and all of this is hectic, right?
Right.
And it adds up.
Right.
And we're not in our early 20s anymore where all of this is, we can kind of slide it under the rug. Now we have to look at the future about, you know, how we're going to take care of ourselves, our family. If we're not around, what will happen? You know, all these kind of thoughts, they kind of scare me now. Like, if I'm not around, what would happen?
Right.
And thank God, touch wood, that my parents would necessarily not need me to take care of them.
Right.
But as a child, anyone would think that,
of course, 100%.
At their old age, I would love to take care of my parents. And the thought that if I couldn't, that really pinched me.
Yes.
So then I asked the doctor, I'm like, should I get a surgery or should I do physio or whatever? So he's like, you can do surgery, but it's just gonna hinder your day-to-day life. Like, he said after a year or so you'll be fine. But if it happens again, we can't do the surgery. It can only be done once. He's like, the best way to do it, a great friend of mine, Aniket Nafre, he's a physio and a strength and conditioning coach. So I spoke to him as well, and he's like, just come to my clinic. So I started going, and the first day I went, it was so horrible. Like, I'll tell you the exercises he gave me. I couldn't lift my leg. So he made me lie down, and he just told me to lift my leg. And the left leg is where the affected areas on the left side. So when I lifted my leg, I couldn't even lift it an inch above the table. And that really scared me. I'm like, what is this, man? So he just told me, you just keep coming. It'll grow.
Right.
And then I think a month or two into the process, I could lift my leg the entire way. Now, I'm not saying my condition is completely gone. It's still around, but I've started playing cricket. I've started, working on the back a little bit more. There are a couple of exercises which I do in the morning, which my physio told me to do. So it's manageable now. I'm not on any painkiller. I'm not on any steroids. So it's manageable. But the point of telling this story was that I absolutely understood what you went through. And this injury of mine, or condition of mine, it kind of got coupled with a lot of work stress in the middle.
Right.
And this is what I was telling you earlier as well. That's where my podcast kind of came to a pause.
Right.
And I just didn't have the willpower to restart. I didn't have the willpower to continue my physio.
Right.
I didn't even have the willpower to get back to work.
Right.
And I had to actually sit down and have a really deep chat with my boss on this. And he's like, dude, what's wrong with you? He's like, this is not how you are. Like, is there something wrong? Is there some issue at home? Is there a monetary problem? So I'm like, no. And I'm like, I don't even know what's wrong. I'm just all over the place. But then I took a small trip to Korea, and it kind of, fixed my mindset,
nice.
so to speak.
Right.
And on the flight back is when I'm like, I have to get back onto my podcast.
Right.
I have to get back to work, because I know I'm also in marketing. I come from a content side of things.
Right.
And I know where my strengths are.
Right.
And just the fact that I couldn't base my entire thing on my strengths, it was very irritating at that point. But now I'm glad, the fighter instinct in me came much later.
Right.
And props to you you started the entire with the fighter mentality. But I'm glad that now it's there and I can actually speak to you about this now.
No, that's actually, it's a great thing, because the topic you've chosen after realizing is a great one, and this is what shit no one speaks about.
Exactly.
You know, we can talk about, you know, all the facades, right? You know, especially all the podcasts today to talk about like, hey,
Hit number 2.
valuation, and I've done this, that, and great, okay. But I think it is also important to talk about everyday tactical.
Yeah.
How do you navigate yourself in a given day?
Yeah.
And this is the shit no one generally speaks about. And I'm not saying people don't want to speak about it. I think there's no platform for everyone's talking. Like if it was a business conversation, it's like, oh, how's your business journey and what did you do? And I had a great idea, and then I went to VCs, and then I knocked doors, and that's also a great struggle. But the fight when you are having a mental problem, or you're having an injury, or you're having a medical problem, or anything, financial problem, like how do you... I'm obsessed with routines. So how do you plan your day?
Yeah.
You know, I'd read this somewhere that you want to win the year, you got to win the month. You want to win the month, you got to win the week.
Yeah.
You got to win the week, you got to win the day.
Yeah.
And you want to win the day, you got to win the morning. And that, you know, when I decided that, okay, fine, let me, you know, fight it out. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I think somewhere all these things really, you know, gave me perspective. It humbled me for sure, and I want to speak about that part at length. But I realized that, okay, you know what, you got to roll your sleeves up, and you got to really plan your day, like visualize, okay, I've won the morning. Okay, then come to the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you do? Okay, you did something great. What do you do in the evening?
And these wins are very different.
Very important. It's like, you know, in Atomic Habits, a book which I will recommend to everyone, and reread them. I think I've read it at least 100 times in the past 2 years, but one chapter a day and trying to apply it.
Yeah.
Right? No, not just reading it just because, like, okay. Like, you know, there are like two personalities with us. One is the older version and one is the potentially new version. And look at it from an election point of view. Any good action is a vote for that identity. So if I exercise in the morning, I'm casting a vote for my new self. If I'm not exercising, I'm casting a vote for my old self.
Brilliant way to put it.
Right? And then I also thought that let's gamify it and let's actually chart it out and see how, let's measure it, and what is measured gets improved, right? So eventually you start seeing that you're actually casting votes for this new identity, and you start feeling great about it because you're visualizing, hey, okay, tomorrow I got to win the morning. And then eventually it just becomes habit. And in 3 months in, you're like, wow, crazy.
Because even like reading all these quotes and these motivational things, I know that it takes 90 days to build a lifestyle, right? But those 90 days are so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm stressing on this again because just the initial conversation I had with you, the thing that impressed me the most was your mindset. And to have that mindset to win the morning every day for 90 days, minimum 90 days.
Right.
I don't think everyone has that. I may go out on a limb and say everyone may have the potential for it, but to tap into it and actually do it, that takes a warrior mindset.
Well, it does, and it doesn't come easily.
Absolutely.
Everyone has to reach that point. Every human being, whether at age 20 or 50 or whenever, you have to come to that point. Yeah. You have no choice. What choice do you have?
Absolutely.
Huh? You don't have any choice, right? It's just
you're
that...
cornered. At that time, you're just in a corner.
Yeah. And luckily, you know, truth being told, I assessed it in such a way that my injury is not life-threatening. And when I see people around and the problems they have medically... It's insane. You know, there's cancer survivors, and you know, we all have heard this, right? But when the party comes to our house, you know, then you start really like empathizing and feeling it, right? So many stories, and this sounds cliched, but you know, even in my family and around, and you know, there have been people diagnosed with terminal diseases, but yet they manage to put out the fight, smile, empower other people and live their lives. You know, of course they must be hurting, of course they must be complaining, but then what else to do?
Absolutely.
it's going to rain. Whether you laugh, you cry. If it has to rain, it's going to rain, right?
Absolutely. I think it's a beautiful reflection on a movie I actually saw very recently. One of the greatest movies I've seen is Anand. I'm sure you must have seen it.
Yes, of course.
I think that mindset is very prevalent in that. He knows he has a terminal disease, and throughout the film, you have no idea. And his way of life, his perspective on life is so beautiful. And then when they find out that he has this terminal disease, it's like everything just turns upside down.
Absolutely.
Right? And see, it's easy to, show it in much glamour on movies and all, but when it comes down to actual real life, it's very difficult to accept it and move on. Which actually brings me to my next question, is that you mentioned before that you met this doctor at Hinduja Hospital, and it's very difficult to get in touch with him or even an appointment.
Right.
And not everyone has access to certain people, to certain people of certain stature.
Right.
So, and this is it's not a condition for the rich people, right? Everyone gets it.
Absolutely.
There's no demarcation.
There is no demarcation.
So how would you kind of want to educate tier 2, tier 3 cities on this condition and how to beat it?
Well, I think it's a great question. I mean, one is that's the reason why I'm so happy that we are having this conversation, because when I was trying to find out what to do, I searched on YouTube, tried to understand some groups, who have this, that how do they do it? Like what diet do I have? Because the doctor will say that, don't put too much weight on your hips, keep it simple, and that's about it. Right? There is no fixed solution.
Absolutely.
He'll not tell you that, hey, listen, increase your protein or reduce your carbs or whatever. Right? He's saying precaution because it's a precautionary treatment. Like, you can't put weight on your hips. Otherwise, the pain will start, right? So, I hope, there are a lot of AVN stories. Ankur Wariku has the same condition, and he's put out a beautiful post on how he approached it. Brilliant transformation. And, he said one very important thing is it's all about what narrative you tell yourself. You can throw a pity party. Or you can be like, okay, I have this, let me do something about it, right? So, to answer your question, see, there is no one solution to AVN, right? I can only give perspective on what has worked for me, right? And I don't mean to, medically guide anyone here. I mean, everyone has to go through their official doctors and all that. But one is that this conversation is about more of the mindset and redesigning your life, right? I think that word redesign is very critical because, like how you design, you build on things, you create a blueprint. And for a blueprint, you need to have a vision. You need to have a strategy to get to that vision. And then you need to have the everyday tactical tools to be able to achieve your strategy.
And that's where the intricate approach comes from.
Yes, and that's what I will further talk now and give a perspective on, so that whoever is listening can get either inspiration or have a little guideline on what to do. See, at the end of the day, if you have stage 3 and 4, if a doctor tells you have to get it replaced, you have to get it replaced. It's futile. You also need to know when to accept, I won't call it defeat, but when to surrender. Sometimes what happens is with this growth mindset and, we take things so personally, we don't know when to stop. But that also takes strength that, hey, listen, I have done everything I have to, but if some condition needs surgery, needs medical intervention, please go for it. Don't delay it where, then you'll be like, it's too late.
Absolutely.
So if any AVN or anyone who has this condition is advised to do that, please go for it. But anyone who feels that with the consultation of a doctor wants to adapt a lifestyle, which perhaps I did, please, I would love for people to get empowered by this.
And of course, this is just one success story, right? I'm sure there's many, and I won't even say success story, I'll say work in progress.
Right.
But the point is to actually get this out in the open so there's more information on it.
Right.
And perfect segue into knowing how you went on it. Like you mentioned before, like
yes,
start explaining like from day one.
Yes.
Yes. Please.
So now I have to like really think, and it's been so the treatment which I was told, like which I'm undergoing, basically is a combination of two things. One is I have to take a tablet twice a week. It's called as Osteophos 35. Basically what that does is it takes the calcium from the bones and deposits it, so to speak, like very layman explanation, you know. And then I have to take this injection, which is an acid. You have to take it through IV. And all of this is a 3-year long treatment. So all this does is tries to make the necrosed part a little hard. The dead thing won't be alive, right? Yeah. But you can mold it where it can take the weight of your body, and then you can build around it. So Dr. Sanjay Agarwala is my doctor, and he has prescribed this. So whoever wants to look him up and whoever wants to meet him can definitely go to him. Hinduja Hospital in Mumbai. There are a lot of Ayurvedic approaches also, and some have worked. So now I see a lot of content on YouTube where Ayurveda has also helped. But largely, I think, let me now get into the lifestyle part of it, right? Since I had stage 2. It was not like, I couldn't walk at all. I was limping, I couldn't walk, yes, but I mean, it was not like a wheelchair kind of a thing where I was not mobile, right? I was limping left, right and center. And so when I came back, this is the first thing which impacted me. Is and the reason why I'm bringing this up first is because I've heard from a lot of people who have spoken to me that, sir, when I got AVN, I'm limping and I feel very ashamed. When I'm walking on the road, people are looking at me. When I go to the malls, I'm an athlete, I'm this, I'm that, and now suddenly I'm like this guy who limps. And these are real problems. So I face that. After feeling so empowered and powerful in life, I'm like, damn, I'm going to the malls, I'm going with my friends, I'm going to places, and I have a visible limp, and I was not okay with it. I was like, simple subconscious kicks in, right? People are going to categorize you a certain way. And simple things like, I'll never get a girlfriend, for example. They'll be like, yeah. I don't mean to say that people judge like this, but this is how one feels. We are a human being at the end of the day, and kudos to all the people who've come out from crazier conditions and really achieved great success. But so this was the first thing which I had to resolve in my mind, and this is something which a lot of people initially have to resolve. That how do you manage the mental side of it till you come to the physical side, right? So definitely, I think the first thing is, it is the most cliched thing, but meditation, and I'll tell you why it helps. Because firstly, it creates headspace. So between any action, between what happens and the reactions, the consequence of it, there is a white space. How you want to react or how you want to approach. Meditation helps you increase that space in your head. Like, you get perspective. Okay, what's happening? Get clarity. So one was the mindset shift in terms of, okay, I am wanting to put my head down. I have this condition. I just want to go inwards, and let me try to make the most of it. Let me try to build so much around my injury that the limp will go eventually. I aspired for it. So resolving and accepting was the first thing which I did, which kick-started that journey. And that's the reason why I'm bringing it up first, because a lot of people don't want to do that, and they just give up in the first because they want quick solutions. I want to do X, Y, Z, give me medicine, but they're not ready to, endure. That word endurance is a very big thing, right? So initially, as I said, I used to feel very embarrassed, very damn, my life is now, I'm going to be like this. So that was one. And second was, nutrition. And everyone knows this, but to be able to, I was on a good nutrition any which ways, because I told you I was like in this whole transformation thing. But to be able to measure your food, to be able to look at it in a way where I don't eat for taste, like how Virat Kohli says it, right? Like, मैं taste के लिए खाता नहीं हूँ. You give me the same food for 6 months, I will eat it. And it is true. Like your relationship with food, the way you approach it, has to change. Because one is, when you have AVN, you can't put weight. If you put weight, if you put weight, right, you are going to get more pain. As simple as that. So people who are not health on the more weight side, they can maintain it. Yeah. But people now who are already on the healthier side of things, it becomes difficult for them. So food has to be crucial. Very crucial. Calorie deficit, understanding. I recommend go to a nutritionist and plan your life in that way, right? I did that. So I designed it in such a way that, okay, let's put our heads down, roll up our sleeves, and look at it from a longer perspective. So mindset is one, nutrition is one, and eventually the exercise part also kicks in. So the idea is to, approach it in a way where there is a plan. Don't just go by the flow. Go in a more focused way wherein you are measuring everything, and you're actually, as I said before, you're winning your sessions. Like, in a test match these days, they analyze, right, who won the session. Right? And I feel that's a fantastic way to approach your life or approach your day also. Are you winning your days? Are you winning your mornings? Are you winning your afternoons? Are you winning your evenings? And are you winning your nights? It's very simple, but it's not easy. It's simple. So, yeah. I got lost there. This is where I think I've spoken about this, that. Now I should talk about what I did, right? Like a step-by-step thing. Okay. So, so I remember one night, I was feeling completely out of it. And I was like, what's up? Like, my life has changed. I have come to Pune, living my life in Gurgaon. What is going to happen, So I asked my father this. And then, he said something very simple, but he said that I think things happen for a reason. And you've been given this opportunity to spend time with yourself, which probably not many people get. So you know what? Make the most of it. In a crass way, what he meant was don't fuck it up. you know?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, you don't know what you can build from here. And I think that really penetrated, I do have time and I do have the opportunity to prove to myself and see whether I'm worth the salt of this fight, because it was an unknown fight. Like earlier fights have been very tangible, like, sport, you want to fight, you win games, like immediate results. But this is a long process, 3-4 years, change of lifestyle. No instant gratification, pain, you got to live with pain. You got to design your life with pain around it, right? And initially, of course, it gets difficult. And I remember this one incident, Kaushik, I really want to tell you this. I was walking on Prabhat Road, that's where I live. And I go to this cafe Blend quite a lot. So there is this Ajoba who I've seen a couple of times walking, okay? And he must be around 80 years old, and he walks alone, and he can't walk, but he has a walker. Okay. And trust me, he is struggling for every step, right? But that guy is still taking that step, holding on to the side railing, actually slow, like, how a turtle would go, right? And I was like really fascinated with what's up with this man, you know. Why is there no help? He can just fall.
Yeah.
So I went and asked him once, ki, you know, तुम्ही काय करताय? आणि मैं तुम्हाला असं help. Generally it got me curious because I was also limping that time. And he said, you know, he said something so beautiful. He said that, you know what, this is my life. I don't mind I fall or collapse, but I will fight till I can. It's a very simple thing to say, but man, that statement got me to be like, I need to get this ASAP. And from that day, I'm not kidding, I was told not to walk, not to run, no gym. Gym was the no, and that was my biggest setback. I can't work out, because I had gone through the 6-month transformation, and I was like, oh my god, I need to go back to my gym. I need to break muscle.
And on top of that, you're a sportsman. So.
And a sportsman. When that Azoba told me this, and I saw him, and I keep seeing him every day, I am not kidding. It gives me, it humbles me, it puts me in my place, and it, tells me to fight the good fight. So here's what happened. I was okay with the mental part of it. I had accepted this. Treatment was happening. Diet was happening. Conversations with my close people were happening. So I was ready. In a sort of, and of course you need support system, and my parents did support me with the right food, being there for me and all that. But I remember the next day I was like, what if I get back to training? I know that my doctor has told me no lifting weights. The max he said is walk in a pool, which I tried, by the way, and I couldn't because the pain was too much. So I tried that. I'm like, what if I start building really slow? Just go to the gym and see how my body reacts. Anyway, I'm eating well. I have the mindset for it. Let's see how my body reacts, right? And then I went to the gym. I have always done well with trainers, and I always recommend that if you have the opportunity, get a trainer. Get people who are specialized to help you in your problems. Nutritionist, dietitian, therapist, whatever it is, coach. When you have a good team, it shows.
Correct.
So I wanted a trainer because I was like, what do I do? And there were some people who recommended me, some specialists, hip specialists, this specialist. I'm like, I want someone who is like me, right? Thoda sa think out of the box. And I met my trainer who. So interesting story. He is from Satara or Sangli. Trains at Deccan Gymkhana. He had an accident and broke his head, split open. And he was a bodybuilder, and he couldn't do anything for 3 years. Like not even move, because he had a very big surgery and everything changed for him. So then he came back and built his life, and now he's a trainer and all that. But I'm like, this guy knows what it means to go through injury. And I want him to train me. So that's how it started. So that Azoba incident inspired me. And then I got this trainer on board, and I explained my situation. And he said, are you sure? So I gave him a brief, like what that old man told me. If my legs have to break, let it happen while training. Eventually क्या करना है, ऑपरेशन ही करना है ना, तो करेंगे. But at least in process, अगर गिरना है मुझे, तो no problem. If I fall on the treadmill, no problem. If I fall while doing anything, I am happy. I am giving you an authority. No one is going to point fingers at you, because of your training, I got screwed and all that. I was clear. And I was also clear to just put my head down and do it step by step, day by day, without thinking what will happen, whether it will be fixed or not. I wanted to enjoy the process without giving a shit. And that's where a lot of things changed for me. That's where the humility kicked in. The whole thing that, every night I was so grateful for what I had versus what I don't have. Like the missing tile syndrome, right? There are 99 tiles on a wall and one is missing. You want to just focus on that, right? But you do have 99, right?
Yeah.
So that changed. I started appreciating genuinely what I have, my resolve, and then from that day, building it slowly. Literally, like I used to go take the walker and go to the gym and do very taking one step. First, there was no weight training.
Yeah.
And we built it for a good 2 years. And now I am walking incline 15 at speed 5, and I am lifting really heavy weights, and
it's truly commendable.
I don't even know what to say, because it is not that great in the larger scheme of things, but for me, I think I came to this point where now you throw me anywhere, I'll come out of it.
Because, but like you said, you just said it's the larger scheme point. But I think that's going against what we're saying. We're talking about the micro, right? It's about the smaller scheme of things. Every day.
So the thing is, every day, when I say that you enjoy the process, I mean you enjoy actually winning every session. You actually start visualizing. Yeah. I had to tell myself that, okay, fine, you know what? Imagine that you are a champion and you have this injury and like you have a great match coming up in a year. What will you do? Like how celebrities think, how these big achievers think. You gotta get into that mindset and have that conversation with yourself, right? And you have to cut off. For some time, you have to, zoom out, see things in a different perspective. Do the work. You don't need motivation.
Yeah.
You need discipline.
Yeah.
One day you'll get motivated, second day you'll get motivated, third day you'll be distracted by so many things. So you got to cut that noise.
And I'm sure that happened to you as well. Like
it did happen.
You lack that one day.
Yeah, of course.
Then how do you kind of get back into it?
So you recommit. You don't go to here and there. Like I keep telling people, like you don't have 2 cheat meals one after the other. Have one cheat meal and get back.
Yeah.
If you have 2 cheat meals, getting back becomes that much more difficult. Definitely. Right? So similarly, if you miss out on one day, no problem. See, you're climbing a mountain. Imagine you're summiting. Okay, let's take the smaller tactical part of it with the analogy of summiting, say Mount Everest, right? You start at base camp. You start taking one step. Pehle to you don't even see the summit, right? It's like too far.
Yeah.
So you go. Then there comes a point where you maybe you don't want to take a break, or you have some breakdown, or something else happens. You stop where you are. You look around. You enjoy the view. You see where you've come, even if it is like just 10 steps. And you keep doing that. At one point, you will see that, you've come a far way from base. And it's okay to just stay there for 10 days. You don't have to come down. You don't have to go up. But you can pause and enjoy the view at least, no?
Yeah. Bask in the progress.
You don't want quick solutions, right? Yeah. So that's where it helped, just chill, even if you have a bad month or even if you have bad 2-3 days, no problem. Because I was measuring it, it became easy to understand where I was.
Right.
People don't measure, right?
So it can be marked.
And measure, matlab, actual measurement, like in nutrition, you measure, you count your calories.
Yeah.
There is a science behind it, right? In exercise, you measure your weight, you measure your muscles, you see small progress every day. Like I was so obsessed, I used to take my weight after anything I ate. So the 0.1, 0.2, then you start understanding water weight, all that makes a big difference. The minutes you meditate, the conversations you have with people. It's just a redesigning of your ecosystem.
And it's the zoom out philosophy, right?
It is.
Because the more you do it, it's not going to seem a lot. But the moment you zoom out, after a while, you'll see that actual progress. And
absolutely.
That's where it kicks in that, I was there, now I can look back and enjoy what I've done.
So the smaller tactical parts are these. Like people generally keep the vision in their, like the summit.
Yeah.
Like they just want to see, where is the view? Can I see it? No, I can't see it. But if you see that, you're always going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to the gym, 1 month in, you don't see any difference, right? It's like, oh, I can't see the summit. It's cloudy, screw it.
Yeah.
Let me go down, right? But hang on, put in another 2 months and somewhere you will start seeing that glimpse of where you want to reach, right? And once you see that, there is no stopping.
Yeah.
So when you say tactics are these smaller everyday things which you do without worrying about your goal.
Yeah.
Because if you start worrying about your goal, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because as human beings, we want instant, and you see around, everyone wants instant gratification,
Absolutely.
right? So one thing which definitely from a tactical point of view is also to have patience. That's what injury taught me. To have patience, to go the long run. So coming back to what I was talking about my training, eventually I started seeing results. Eventually, once you start seeing yourself improve, you want to improve more. You feel that, okay, it's worth the effort. It takes time, but then once that thing, the dopamine starts hitting, and a great thing about dopamine, since I brought it up, understanding dopamine was also very interesting for me. I wanted to understand moods, and that came in the tactics. How are we affected by our, how does our mood get affected? Social media. And then the relationship with dopamine became very important.
Yeah.
And with Hubermans of the world giving access to all of this. This is tactics. Reading books, taking one chapter, applying it, do A/B testing with yourself, see what's working, see what's not working, is tactics.
Yeah.
Understated, non-glamorous. Nobody's going to come and give you pat on your back and all that. You got to do this with yourself. If you are not going to do this, you are just wanting. We see so many people 6 months where they want this transformation.
Yeah.
After that 6 months, then the body is somewhere else only,
Correct.
right? So for an injury like AVN, what choice do you have? You got to stick to this process and you got to really keep it real with yourself.
So when you started this whole training journey and all, I know how you explain the whole summit philosophy here of, forget about the goal and just keep working. But it's also important to kind of have a goal, right? You have to know that you want to reach a summit. So for you, what was your goal? Like, was it to get back into full training? I know there are a lot of limitations which the doctor probably told you, like, probably can't run or
Right.
play sports. But there's some goal that you wanted to attain. And goals are constantly changing.
Right.
But what was the first thing that you're like, ye karna hai?
So I had mentioned this a little while ago, right? You have to have in your blueprint, like when you make a building, right? You want to make a 100-story building, right? That's your vision. To make the 100-story building, you need to understand how deep you need to have the foundation and the material and all of that, right? So similarly, the vision was that, okay, fine, you know what? Let's try to perhaps build the best body with the condition I have. Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Can I be aesthetic? Can I be fit both mentally and physically? Can I have a toned body with so many restrictions? So that was like a kick. That was my vision. And then to achieve that vision, the strategy was I'll get 2 trainers. I will get a nutritionist on board. I will hang out with people who inspire me. I will read books. And once that strategy is in place, the tactics are what the everyday winning sessions and, trying to see, giving the votes to that person you want to be and, so on and so forth. So this was the clear vision. And while this was a vision for my injury, it was also a vision to understand, and I'm taking a little spiritual angle, understand life in general, understand the whys of things. Understand, how fragile things are, and understanding the beauty of your body and how things work, and being connected with people, and so it works both ways. So I started feeling this, and then I was like, I'm very clear now the direction which I want to head into, because the spiritual path is also very important. You got to be selfish to be selfless. and then once you are selfless, you can empower people, and then you can, take them with you. And this comes very powerfully for me right now. Like, it also translates into business and, other aspects of my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, the vision was very clear. Build the best body. Prove it to myself and my doctor, because when I sent him the picture, he jumped from his chair. Like, are you lying about your injury or what? But it's still a work in progress, to be honest. It's a long journey. Has it recovered? No. Has it been better? For sure. There is pain, yes. Every day you kind of get used to it now.
Yeah.
And you just live another day, man. You feel great about it. Like, you feel really humbled about it. And that's the physical vision, and then the spiritual vision, which needs to be fueled, for sure.
And like how you said, Ki, your vision or your goal was to create the best body out of the condition that you have. That's actually so difficult given the condition, because you have nothing to compare it to, right? It's you against you.
It's me against me.
So that's the difficult part to be in. You're literally fighting yourself every day.
It is you against you.
Yeah.
We feel that it is us against the world, but eventually we are interpreting everything of what's happening around you to reason it out with yourself.
Yeah.
So it is, how much ever cliched it sounds, cliches are there for a reason, right? It is you against you. And then you also start realizing, and I spoke about the whys of things, right? So why do we do what we do? Why have we started drinking as society? Why do we eat junk?
Yeah.
Why do we get excited about eating food when we are unhappy? What is it doing to our system? Once you start understanding that relationship, then you start wondering, okay, you know what? Damn, we need to change something, like, and you might relate to this better because, as you said, you hit a dead end. We were doing so bunch of things, and we tend to overcompensate on an escape and run, and at some point it catches up, right?
Yeah.
So you felt that, and then you decided that, okay, you know what, I really need to understand my body. I need to connect with myself deeper, because this is not cutting it. And that's what it is.
And yeah, man, like, that's actually where I started spending more time with myself. I really reduced going out. Social life had gone to a minimum. But I enjoyed that space. Being with myself helped me a lot. My mind is not the type of mind that's really easy to make meditation happen. I'm all over the place. I have ADHD as well, so it's kind of difficult for me to focus on one thing. So I tried meditation a couple of times. It wasn't really my cup of tea. But then I once met my brother, and I was just speaking to him about all of this. And for anyone who knows my brother, he's an absolute opposite side of who I am.
Right.
He's very disciplined. He's very quiet. He has a single focused mind. So I just asked him, like, how do you meditate? And he's like, you're thinking of it in the wrong way. He's like, meditation is not mandi galun basna and just dole bitun basna. And I'm like, that's how I perceive meditation to be. Just, he's like, meditation can be anything that clears your mind.
Right.
And that can be anything. It can be playing a sport, listening to music, playing music, anything. And it's very you specific.
Right.
He's like, what is it, that one thing that you like doing where you're alone and it's just you and your mind? So I said, it's always been writing for me. He's like, get back into it. And I've never journaled or kept a diary or whatever, but I started doing that. And I started documenting every single thing that happened, even the small dialogues that I've exchanged with people, where of course they've made an impact in a certain way. And that is where me being alone, it started helping so much for me. Because I've never had that spiritual side awakening.
Right.
Maybe I will one day, but which was actually going to be my next question for you. Were you always spiritual, or did this entire thing help you to see that perspective?
Well, to be honest, I was in some way. I mean, it is there in my family. So there were always glimpses of it, right? And I always had these cameos in life where, you have a month of spirituality where you want to, really get into it and read and feel a certain way. But again, your habits used to always make you get back to the grind, which was the society, right? Oh, you got to be a certain way. The definition of success and failure is defined, and we all follow that, without questioning it. How we entertain ourselves when we get bored. Simple thing, like I started understanding that I drink because honestly, I'm bored. And when you get that realization, you feel that, oh damn. So this used to happen in bits and pieces, but I never had a strategy. I never had tactics. I never knew what to do with it. So it was only after getting the knowledge and understanding all of this is where it actually became a lifestyle. Call it destiny, call it whatever. I'm so glad it happened. It might have taken a whole set of things which happen in our life, like heartbreak, for example. Big motivator for people to just get back into the thing. But it's beautiful, right? Pain can be beautiful if you perceive it a certain way. I think it can be very powerful. A lot of musicians make the best music when they are in pain, right? And a lot of people, you never know how you react after you accept that, hey, listen, I gotta fight this out, and then superb. So I have always been spiritual, and now I don't want to do cameos anymore. What about you? Like you, I think sometimes you don't know that you are a certain way till you actually come to face it. Like maybe you say that you are not a spiritual person, for example. Maybe what is spiritual? It's such a, like, I don't know what the word means, but it is going inwards, right?
It is, yes. And I also feel it's a very subjective term, but with a certain underlying theme to it, right? My father is very spiritual, and sometimes he tells me things in that spiritual way, and I'm like, like don't tell me all of this. Be very specific in what you're telling me. There's a certain way to do things. So he's like, no, you have to understand it from a spiritual point of view. And I try. It's not like I don't try, but I just haven't gotten that grasp on it yet. Maybe I am thinking spiritually. I just don't know it yet, right? Because
I feel like that.
The subjectivity of it, maybe it's not allowing me to understand that I'm thinking of it in a spiritual way.
But now maybe, and I'll take the liberty of concluding this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe now you are allowing yourself to sit back and receive something which you perhaps don't know. Like you have that headspace, because a lot of times, and especially when I used to work, I was like, I know what I know. And that's about it. I don't have the headspace to allow someone else to influence me and tell me that, hey, you don't know this. Always rubbish it. Like, I don't have time for this. But now that maybe you go inward, you get perspective. You're like, okay, you know what? Let me be on the receiving side of it. Let me sit down, listen. And perhaps that translates into why you want to have this podcast. Like, conversations is not just about asking questions.
No, absolutely.
It's also about listening. And to listen, you need to be a certain way. Otherwise, you keep talking and then you keep interrupting, and then the authenticity of it goes, right? So perhaps you just need to, now that you feel this way, just go deeper without questioning it, and do it in a way wherein you can measure it. There's a method to the madness. I know people say go with the flow. Sure, you can go with the flow, but you can also be a little smart about it.
And the flow can also be structured a bit.
So that's a.
Going back to what you said earlier is, you're in some way you're happy that this happened, or you're glad that this happened, and call it destiny or call it thanking your stars, whatever, but it led to something. It led to something very beautiful, and you've been working on it. I won't get much into detail, though I know about it. I'd love for you to talk about it. But the vision that you have is beautiful, and I'd love for you to speak about this further.
Sure. So I think Steve Jobs said it, right? You can only connect the dots looking backwards, right? So when you are in that moment, you don't really know how it's going to pan out. But I think I do believe whatever happens for a reason. Yeah. And a couple of things which were an offshoot of this was, had AVN not happened, Good Indian wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Good Indian is the startup, activewear startup. So when I had shifted back, I used to meet Rushad, co-founder of Good Indian, and we used to go to Starbucks. You know, he used to come pick me up because I couldn't drive that time, and we used to go and have coffee and just have conversations. And one day he just, said that, hey, listen, because he used to listen to my story about fitness and how I was passionate, and he said that, I have an idea. I want to start something in activewear, and he had actually gone ahead and coined the word Good Indian. Okay. And he said that, why don't you do something with me? And that was just a coffee talk. You know what happened, right? Coffee talks, they have so many ideas and all. But the name really resonated with me, and it didn't leave my head. And one thing led to the other, and I was like, I am very passionate about building an ecosystem, impact business. Yeah. I've always been a sportsman, so I want to go to the grassroots of the country. And suddenly, out of nowhere, we decided that let's build a business, and it started by a very small thing, just to sell activewear, get influencers and, go all out that way. But then we thought that with the name should come a story, and to pour all these experiences to be able to create an ecosystem which empowers people. The intersection of exercise, mindfulness, and nutrition. Yeah. Right. And that's what gave birth to Good Indian. And we launched in 2023. We took a year to build it. Yeah. I was working that time as well, so I was doing two things. And eventually I quit my job, and I decided that, I want to do something which is meaningful, something which creates impact in society. And we are 1 year into operations, and so Good Indian happened because of AVN. Yeah. Had AVN not happened, I wouldn't shift to Pune. Yeah. I wouldn't meet Rushad, and this wouldn't even begin. Yeah. And apart from that, I got a chance to come back home, spend time with my parents. Yeah. I had only known them as parents, but now I also get a chance to experience them as human beings. How my mom is, how my father is, the human side of them, like how my grandmother is, and spending time with family, resetting, recalibrating, I would call it slow living. That's what people these days say. But just to, come back to my roots and, try to build a different life altogether, something which was very alien. Like, we're always used to a certain way when you're living alone, in a tier 1 city, and, there's pressure, timeline. We are all a function of designations, and, you know how that goes, right? And self-created ego scenarios in your head, and nothing bad with that. I respect it. My job gave me everything. Massive respect for it. But so to answer your question, Good Indian happened. A chance to come back to my roots happened. A chance to now. I'm also doing a lot of marketing, experiential gigs, consolidating that part, and to be able to, enjoy myself, solitude, just being in a cafe, allowing yourself to get bored. Yeah. I think it's powerful, It is. Because initially when you start getting bored, you want to either eat, you want to drink, you want to call someone, you want to smoke, you want to keep entertaining yourself. But I think this part is where it allowed me to, get bored with myself, and I was absolutely okay. Yeah. That's what happened, and I'm so glad that AVN happened, and it gave me an opportunity to fight the good fight, to go deeper within myself, to understand what humility means, to understand your place in the larger scheme of things, and yet go and fight every day with as much passion, absolutely, and as much honesty. That's what else do you do? Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur now, that warrior spirit in you, it's so imperative to have that, right? I've tried my hand at entrepreneurship before.
Right.
I used to run my own agency, and it's just not easy.
Right.
And emotionally, it can get quite draining. Physically, it's fine. I had started when I was much younger, but just lacking the fighter spirit, it makes a huge difference. And maybe you had it before as well, or maybe AVN, kind of got it in you. But just the fact that going through all of this, understanding or getting to know that you have a ton of limitations going forward, having a condition that is fairly new or unknown, all of this considered and still moving forward day by day, having a vision and starting Good Indian and doing good, really commendable. I love the story, and that's why, a common friend of us actually put us together, and I think we should take him out for drinks.
No, he doesn't drink, but we should take him out for coffee.
That's what I meant by drinks.
So just to kind of add something to the last question, you mentioned about the fighting spirit in entrepreneurship. So I think fighting spirit is also misrepresented sometimes. Sometimes we all feel that fighting means to put all eggs in one basket and go completely all out. What AVN taught me with entrepreneurship was the patience game, because in today's world, you want everything immediately, right? You want funding also immediately, right? And you know how that is. That's crazy. So to be able to sit with an idea, a vision, to keep doing what you have to do, and to be patient with it, is something. It's super powerful. It is. This would be like whatever little. It's not an advice, but patience. People should have patience. People should know how to wait, how to endure, and that's the biggest take back as an entrepreneur from this injury, from this situation. That you have patience with yourself. You keep doing what you have to do, and one day, hopefully. So, as I said, warrior spirit is not going all out. It is also you can also be a warrior and be quiet.
Correct.
The silent battles, the war in your head which you don't tell anyone about.
People misconstrue it as aggression. It's not that.
You can be a warrior by not being aggressive also. You can be silent. That's also a warrior spirit.
Yeah.
So like today we feel everyone's like all they just want to be there, and and nothing wrong with it again. But a lot of times the silence gets misunderstood. Silence gets misunderstood as weakness, or you have a defeated mindset. No, it's not. It will, if you have that tactic and that vision very clearly, slowly but steadily, it will show. Absolutely. It will show. I have complete faith in it. So that's what I'm glad that I've got this lesson from this injury.
Well, Avneesh, it's been a lovely conversation, and I hope that people take something out of this, and I know they will, because we spoke about a bunch of things, and at the end of the day, it's to each his own. But the important thing is to take out what matters, right? And with the story and with the tactical advice that you've given, I hope that people do understand it, and there's a lot more awareness about AVN going forward. So again, thanks, Avneesh. It was awesome.
Pleasure.
And,
I'm glad that we somebody has realized that topics like these need to be a part of podcasts.
Absolutely.
And I think I should not wear this cap anymore, because I think you should definitely have your podcast and give people platforms for things which are not available so easily. And I'm so glad that I could share a little bit of my journey, and we'll fight for another day.
Awesome. Perfect.
Cheers.